Welcome everyone to my third podcast already. And today I'm so excited to tell you that I am here with Sarah from Sarah's Stitchy Spot. She is by far one of my favorite floss tubers, so I am very, very happy to sit here with Sarah. And let's just get right into it because that's the easiest way to do it. So, Sarah, I'm just going to ask you to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your stitching and about you.
Hi, I'm Sarah, and I am absolutely honored and humbled and thrilled to be here with Hanneke. Um, a little bit about myself. I am a mother of three beautiful daughters. I am the wife of Stan, which most people know. I have seven extremely precious grandchildren. I am a retired physician. I worked in women's health almost the entirety of my medical career. And I have been cross stitching for probably, I have a piece to share with you, but it probably at 60 years. So
Really?
if not a little bit more. Well, I am 73. And if I look back and think about my stitching history, I know that I was stitching certainly between the ages of 10 and 12.
Wow.
So
And
that's
you're still
60.
not bored of it. You're still enjoying it.
No, oh, no, no, no. And in fact, the world opened up as we talk about so much on Flosstube with the
Mm.
pandemic and watching floss tubes, and there was just a whole new world of cross stitching that I had never been exposed to. So
Yeah.
primarily because I live in Northern California. I live in a very rural community. There was not a local needlework store that I could go to and find out about all this fabulousness that was changing and going on. And so, yeah, this, believe me, I'm stocked up and ready for bear as far as what I've got to stitch and can't wait to start. So,
Yeah.
yeah, so I would say that's kind of me in a nutshell.
So tell me a little bit, because you just said about between the ages of 10 and 13, you started stitching. So was it something you were taught at school or was it something you were taught at home?
I was taught at home. No, I don't think there was any type of course, there was, home economics in high school. I know it has another name now, but that's what it was for us, where some sewing skills were taught. But my mother did sew. She sewed a lot of garments. She sewed a lot of my clothes. Um, and so I know this, especially this early piece that I will show, that came from my mother, and that was primarily embroidery. I don't remember my mother specifically teaching me cross stitch.
Right.
And tragically, it's been so long ago, I just don't know exactly my exposure and when that happened. But there
Yeah.
has been some kind of fabric and needle in my hand. I thought I had a piece that I think my mother must have entered in a fair. And I tell you what, I went to look for it over the last couple of days. I just can't find it. But it was embroidery. So, and I know where I was living when she did that. So I was, between 10 and 12 when that happened. So,
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
So that's a really long time of stitching.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
is.
And have you passed it on because you have three daughters? Have you passed it on to them as well?
I have tried as hard as I can, and I have not been successful in that endeavor. So
Not yet. Not yet. There's time.
it,
There's still
there's
time.
still time. My youngest daughter, who is the mother of Vince and Aria, that everyone has shared with me in my floss tube, she stitched a piece when she was 7,
Wow.
And I tragically probably don't have it. Well, I know I don't because I think everything pretty much is unpacked at this point in my life. And she did a beautiful job. The oldest daughter also did a stocking for one of her children that was gorgeous. So she certainly had that ability. Of
Yeah.
course, back then everything was on Ada, 14 count Ada,
Yeah.
either in cream, white, or the oatmeal. So yeah, I'm still working at doing that. So
Well, you might succeed one day because they have the skill, so they might be able to pick it up at some point.
exactly, I will say that they very much appreciate my stitching,
Mm.
and that means a lot to me.
Yeah.
The youngest Eva does not really care for the sampler thing, which is sort of my primary focus these last 5 or 6 years. But anything that I have given them over the years, they still have, and
Yeah.
so
Yeah. So has your stitching changed? Because you just said currently it's mostly samplers, but you've been stitching for 60 years. So have you been doing different things over the years, or have you sort of stuck to red samplers over the years?
no, and in fact, I sort of selected the pieces to show it with a small reflection on how my stitching has changed over the
Yeah.
years. So it is definitely changed, yes. And again, primarily due to the exposure to Flosstube and other stitchers, was really where the sampler movement, came, and the use of overdyed fabrics and threads and linen, and yeah. So
How
that's
did
what.
you come across Flosstube then at some point? Did someone introduce you to it, or did you came across a video when you were on YouTube at some point?
I think that's what must have happened, Hanukkah, because I was very active. I did do a lot of card making, so and there were some wonderful. Of course, Nicole Spohr is also a floss tuber, and she was also into card. I don't know if maybe I caught that she was talking about cross stitching, and of course I was still stitching, so it was a fluke, I'm sure, because or possibly because I can't even think of what I would have been looking for as instruction at that point in my life in cross stitch,
Yeah.
where because by then, certainly by the pandemic, we were all using it to learn, and to have tutorials and to broaden skills. But at that
Mm.
point in time, I don't know what it would have been. So I
Mm.
do think it was just one of those really happy accidents that happened. And
And then the world opened up, and here
oh,
we all are.
yes, yes,
Could you take me through the stitches that you've selected?
yes, absolutely. So the first piece is, and it really means a lot to me. And let's see how we can show it. I even ironed it for you, Hanukkah.
Wow, well done.
Now, as far as where the camera is, how are we doing? Is
That's
that
perfect.
okay? So this is a stamped cross stitch piece. So it was stamped. So it does have some X's, but it
It
is
does.
primarily embroidery. And it
And what type of
was
fabric is that? Is because that doesn't look like cross stitch
no,
fabric.
it's just a cotton. It was a apron that
Oh,
I
that's
made for my grandmother.
oh yeah, that's one of
Yes.
those old-fashioned kind of aprons. Oh, I
Yes.
love that.
And so I think that this is, in fact, you can see, I mean, it is so old
Yeah,
that, it is starting to, I don't use it because I've just been trying to keep it. But,
yeah.
and then when my grandmother died, now she did not teach me, I don't think, specifically stitching skills, but I did spend a lot of time with her. And the summer that I turned 20, I lived with her for 3 months. And I do remember sitting and stitching while she would either be shucking green beans or from the garden. I those are very good memories for me. But
Yeah.
but her daughter gave this back to me. Yeah, when she passed, and so
That's
um,
lovely.
it's been a very treasured
Yeah.
piece. So so that so I'll just continue to go through these pieces. And okay, so this is something that I spent. So I did a lot of these types of stitching. So these are full coverage.
Yeah.
They were from a place called Mystic Stitch, which is no longer here. And what they did, of course, was make cross stitch charts from works of art that, you know, there was no copyright. They were very popular. They would do these sales and you could buy, you know, 3 or 4 for, you know what.
Okay.
And so I went through a pretty big phase of doing these. I think I have 4 finished that are, you know, that are hanging. And I took a picture of it with Google to see if I could get the name of it. And when I turned this over, you're not going to believe this. This piece must have come with the pattern when I bought it.
Um,
And so it's got the bouquet of flowers in an arch, circa 1620, and I would massacre this name, Ambrosius Boschart. He was a Flemish flower and still life painter. And I finished this on June 19th, one day before my birthday in 2004.
wow.
So,
Wow.
yeah. So how cool is that? You know,
That's
you don't look behind your things when you've had them on the wall for a long time. But
it's stunning.
I look at these things now and I absolutely cannot imagine doing one. It seems
They
so
are
hard.
very, very big. It seems like the heaven and earth design size, basically. It's that big, isn't it?
But yes, and you know, huge floss count. You know, DMC. It was on Ada, 14 count Ada. That was what we stitched on, and but I was so thrilled to find that. Now I want to go and look behind the others. Oh, I hope that those are on there with the dates that I finished them, because obviously back then I did not keep track of anything that, you know, that I
No,
was.
and that's what Flosstube does do for you, isn't it? You can look back at what you did at what period of time. But this is very organized, one of those little certificates basically at the back of your work. And maybe I should just adopt that because I think it's very nice to just put it at the back.
Exactly, exactly. So my next piece is, again, they're also large, and I'll try to get the glare off and go down. So this is King Arthur and Guinevere. And it's not full coverage, but it's along the lines of a Mirabilia,
Yeah.
or a Teresa Winsler. Is that coming up fairly good or at all?
Yeah. Yeah, that's fine.
And this piece was designed by Donna Vermillion Giampa. Some of the older floss tubers, you know, may know her name. Again, back then, I just bought a pattern. You know, I kitted it up and I went from there. But what is special about this piece, to me, in my stitching history, is, I'm going to put it down, is gifting, cross stitching for gifts for very special people. And I gifted that to he was the artistic director of a theater that I worked at. I did theater up here for about 25 years.
Wow.
And community theater. And then we do have an equity house here, so professional theater. And he was the artistic director at the theater. So he worked with me, coached me, but, well, I'm going to give, sorry.
That's okay. He was important to you, wasn't he?
Yeah. He gave me away. I
Oh,
can't believe
really?
this. When I married Stan.
Yeah. Oh, that's
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because my father had passed by then. My mom was there and my aunt, but
Yeah.
and unfortunately, he passed from cancer several years ago.
Right.
And his husband, um, about 2 years ago, told me that he was going to send it to me so that I would have it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so it's a very special piece for a
Yeah.
very special person. But over my life, again, I have used cross stitch to commemorate friendships or to thank people for something or to uh, just extremely good friends that I knew would appreciate my stitching. You know,
That is a big gift, isn't it? Because you spend, I don't know how many hours on a piece like you've just shown. So that is a very big gift to give.
and it had Krynick in it, which you know, I if I go the rest of my life without ever picking up another piece, it will be just fine with me.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
yeah. So I was really happy to get it to have it back. So you know, I've got my grandmother's apron and I've got Frank's piece back. It stood on an easel in their bedroom, but he
Oh, wow.
loved. You know, he loved musical theater, and Camelot was his favorite musical. So
Ah.
that is why I chose that piece to do. So,
Oh, that's beautiful. And it's
yeah.
beautiful to have a story about your stitching because I
Yes.
also stitch things for a reason. There's a reason why I want to stitch it. And this is a beautiful reason.
Yeah. Yeah. So my next piece is going to seem a little silly, but it's Dear Sweet Ira Ray by The Good Housewife. Now, Hanneke, I don't know if you're familiar with this piece, but
No.
there is an Ira Ray and an Ida May. They were designed by The Good Housewife, and they are out of print charts,
Ah, okay.
and they are highly sought after.
Mm.
Many people want to. So I'm bringing this up to celebrate our community, the cross stitching community, because I wanted to stitch them so badly. And I mentioned it on a floss tube.
Yeah.
And dear Julie, of Floss Paper Scissor, that's another mother-daughter team. Julie wrote me immediately and said, I have them both and I will gift them to you with the caveat that you will pass them on
Yeah.
when you're finished. So I was so touched. Now, having done Flosstube now for almost, it'll be 3 years in July. Uh, I've received very touching things over those 3 years, but this was sort of the first that
That's
I
so sweet.
realized that a total stranger would let go of two treasured patterns
Yeah.
to let me have the opportunity to stitch them. So
Have
so
you
I have
passed it on as well? Have
I
you
did,
given
and
it?
you know, I hope someone I put a card in it, and I'm hoping that the card continues to go with it as it goes around for you to sign it and say, you know, when you stitched it. So yeah. So that is
That's a
Mr.
great idea. We should do that with more stitches and patterns that are out
Exactly,
of print.
exactly. So that was why I chose this. I apologize. I got a little verklempt with talking about Frank. My next piece is a celebration of Jean Lee, the owner of the attic.
Yeah.
But when I first met Jean 3 years ago, I looked at her right in the eye and I said, the 56 count is not going to fly with me. I love you and I love your encouragement and I love all you do, but that's not going to work.
No.
And so this year, in January for my blessing sampler, I started this piece, which is Jenny Vet, VEGT, and it is I don't know. It is designed by Audrey of Stitch Bead, and it was a pattern that she reproduced, and she allowed people to download the PDF by supporting a animal shelter. So I started it on 56 count. So I didn't quite get it finished. I had a couple of days left. We got down to January 30th, and Jean died, and I had not put the name on it. And so I put her name.
Beautiful.
And I put the attic, and I left the C off. And when I went to the attic shortly in February, right after she died, I sat up at one of the tables in the front of the store with one Carolyn. No, her name wasn't Carolyn, or maybe it was Carol, that had known Jean for about 30 years, but not the Carolyn that we usually associate with Jean. Anyway, and I put the C in at the attic.
Wow.
So that was
that's lovely. And 50, it's just ridiculous to me because that's so tiny, but it's so pretty when you look at it.
Yeah, I think because I started doing a lot of 1/1 on 25 count, it is very true that your eyes do make an adjustment. Yeah. Because I have now started another piece, a sampler on 56 count. And wow. I can stitch it. And I'm actually, this was 103s that you hear about so much. Jean preferred the flosstubing, which is even thinner, and she thought it was best for 56 count. I didn't have any trouble using the 103, but with this larger sampler that I have started, which is a French fancy by Mama Loves You GB, which is beautiful. A beautiful French, yes. And I selected the flosstubing to use on that 56 count. That again was one of Jean's favorite colors to do that. So, and just because we're talking about it, I didn't select this piece, but this is Ursula's sampler, which Jean owned the original, and yes, and it's charted under. She did not do the charting. It's charted under samplers in my attic and is sold at the attic. But that is again one of my prized stitchy pieces.
It's stunning. It's beautiful.
Yeah. And my last one is going to be impossible to show, but it is my pride, and that is that is Mary 395, and I know it's really very, very hard,
so beautiful
to show. And there was all the joy about the three-legged cow, which I don't know if I can see where the cow is. The cow is actually charted with 3 legs. And on my floss tube, I went through, no, I'm going to leave it with 3 legs because that's the way it was charted. Yeah. And there was a correction on Nicola's side, Hands Across the Sea, to put the 4th leg in. That's and going along with quite a few of my viewers, I decided to put the 4th leg. So
it's beautiful. It's so beautiful. And how long did it take you to stitch that one? How many years, I guess?
Or years. Yes. I started it in 2022. It was kitted up at Acorn and Threads, which is a wonderful local a needlework store in Portland, Oregon. Right. And it is a 36 count fabric, just a platinum, just a Zweigart platinum. And I used a Gloriana silk and the colorway was poinsettia.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
And I love silk. Silk is so nice to work with, especially
Oh,
with those very big ones. It's lovely.
yes, yes. But you hear people talk about it, but you become quite attached to the girl, especially when you work on a piece that you spend this much time with, to the point that, and I know this is silly, but I just love to, I tend to bounce around a little bit on my pieces. I don't really have a stitch pattern.
No.
But I got to a place where I realized that I could safely get to the Bible that is very prominent in Quaker, especially the Bristol samplers. And I said, I've got to jump over and put that Bible in because I know that child would want it, you know. Now,
Yeah. It
but
just
I
means
felt it.
something at that point. Yeah, and do you look up information on the girls that have designed it, or do you leave that?
Uh, no, Nicola does an incredible job with her Hands Across the Sea samplers. And
Yeah.
she gives you all the information in those fabulous booklets of hers. Now Mary, I don't think had a date on this. I think the only identifying factor was her, what they think was her bed number at the orphanage, which was
Right.
395. And so that is the name of the sampler, is Mary
Yeah.
395.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
It's stunning, and it's that one's beautiful, and the one behind you is just as beautiful. I think they're just amazing, like,
yeah.
gorgeous. And you always stitch with red. Is that a specific choice? Does that just go with your interior?
Well, I think, well, no, I don't have an interior, honey. we're we're early American mess at this house. But I do like red. Um, but Mary to me needed to be in red. I would not have had any problem. Uh, oh, who was it? Oh, I'm not going to remember. Mary, her name is Mary, and her floss tube is A Mary, Mberry Stitcher. She is doing this in a gold, that Gloriana that's just a hint of variegation. It's
Ah,
stunning, or
yeah,
she's finished it. But anyway, so
yeah,
I'm not precious about red, but I do work on a red sampler um, every Thursday, pretty
right.
much. Yeah. So from the early influence of Brenda and Laura, because obviously they were one of the first floss
Yeah,
tubers that I watched. It was buy all the Blackbird and always have a red sampler on the go, and
yeah.
so I was very vulnerable at that time, and so I stuck by those rules. um, yeah.
And would you like it to become a red sampler wall? Because some people do that. They put it all on one
Yes,
wall.
yes.
So
I
pretty.
I did just finish Ruth Gibb, which is another Hands Across the Sea, very tiny. I did that 1/1 on 25 count. But this is just a sweet small sampler.
Mm.
Um, and yeah, so I want to get some of various sizes, and
Yeah.
we've got a hallway wall. My house
Um,
has a lot of windows, which unfortunately takes away from the wall space, but the hallway is barren, and we can fix that. So
you can put all your red samplers in a row. That'll be
yes, yes,
beautiful.
yes. So those were that's a little bit of sort of the journey of my stitching from the early stamped on iron-ons, that you would actually iron your little pattern on a cotton and cross stitch and there was a multitude of things in the middle of all of that. I
Yeah.
did stitch some mirabilias. I did a mirabilia for my middle daughter. I have a Sleeping Beauty on my wall back there, which was a mirabilia, and a piece that, if when you watch my floss tube at the very beginning, the first shot is of a mirabilia that is in a frame that's stand built. So it's got beveled mirrors on either side of it. And then coat hooks, so you could, hang the coat hooks.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful. Well, I think it's really nice that you show that maybe your taste does change over the years because I'm starting to notice it as well in my taste. And I think that's okay because that's just how it goes. And in your case, you've been stitching for so many years. I guess it also helps to keep it interesting, to try different things and try different kinds of
Exactly.
patterns. So I think that's a natural way for everyone, really.
Right, right, right.
And if I can ask you the question that was asked by my previous guest, which is Kim, I did a podcast with Kim, and she asked, "What would be your favorite brick and mortar shop?"
Well, it would be the attic.
Yeah,
But that's not completely fair because it's really the only real big one I've been to.
right.
We have a lovely a shop here in the Bay Area that is reachable, but it would for me be about a 3 hour drive, which going
Mm,
there and coming back in one day would be a little hard.
yeah,
And that is Needle in a Haystack. And it's fabulous. And I loved Acorn and Threads when I went.
yeah.
I've been there twice. Stan's son lives in Portland, and
Ah,
actually ended up living only like a mile away from Acorn and Threads, which was just fabulous. I have bucket list. Obviously, I would love to go to Hobby House. Shepherd's Bush. There's a lot of places, but again, when you're vulnerable, when you are that this world is opening, the attic was what was there, and Jean and Carolyn, and so you get, that's what impresses you, and so
yeah, yeah. And I also think that a lot of each shop has sort of a different atmosphere to it. But I love visiting different ones and also they have different designers usually, at least here.
exactly.
And that's nice to just be introduced to different things and then take from it whatever you will, basically.
Well, we all know too that a lot of times charts that we just see the chart
Yeah.
we might pass over. And when you can go into these places with so many models,
Yeah.
um, I mean, the Smith sampler that I did, and well, that one for sure that I am working on. That was one that I saw the model and I went, oh, I have to have that. Not
Yeah.
even realizing that Tanya, the designer, that I was going to go to her house on that visit. She had us over to her house to see,
Oh,
her work and where she works and where she
yeah.
designs with the Scarlet House. And I didn't even know that much about it all then, 3 years ago. And so yeah, it means a lot to see the model
Yeah.
stitched. Yeah.
Yeah. I agree. I agree. And some pictures just don't do the pattern justice.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I have a few now that are so different from the picture. And when I show the picture on my floss tube, I want to show the pattern more because it's just so different than that picture. It just doesn't work.
Right. Right. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's what those shops do. They show all those beautiful samples of
Exactly.
all the work. Yeah,
Exactly.
it's
Yeah.
absolutely lovely. Could you give us a tip for the viewers? So it could be for new stitchers who've just started, could also be for seasoned stitchers who've done it for years and years and years. Do you have a tip for us?
I want you to know that this has been the hardest question I have ever been asked.
Really?
I don't know what caused, but because I feel like that every time I go to think about a tip, that really what I want to say is advice. And I think there's a bit of difference. And so it's very hard for me to answer that question. But I did bring something that that for me, I can't live without since I received it as a gift. So it's a bit humorous, but I am dead serious. I use this every single day when I cross stitch.
I'm
And
very
that
curious.
is this. This allows you to eat popcorn or anything while
That
you
is amazing.
Now, I actually used to cross stitch places to keep myself from eating because I didn't want to get my hands dirty when I was younger,
Yeah.
when we were so worried about our weight. But
Yeah.
Angie, the tiny house stitcher, gave me a pair of these. And since the day she gave them to me, I have used them every day because I do love my popcorn. They can be purchased on Amazon. I know it seems like a very silly tip, but it is a very genuine tip. But along those lines, to me, especially to new stitchers, is to make sure that you keep doing the things that you love doing, the things that make you happy. Explore when you're ready, and don't think that you have to keep up with anybody or anything. Because as someone who has been stitching as long as I have, you'll make the progress and your journey will happen. But the most important part is to stay happy, is to do what makes you happy and what gives you peace and calm, which is extremely important for all of us that do this, is the joy and the peace that it gives us.
And if that means eating popcorn while you're stitching, I mean, that works, doesn't it?
It does. I do love
It does
popcorn.
for me too. And the truth is, you do want to keep your pieces relatively neat. At least I do when I'm stitching, and I try to wash my hands before I start stitching, and I try to keep it neat. But then again, I do a lot of stitching when I'm on the road, when I'm in a train. So then you can't keep it as neat as you want.
Right.
So I think this is a great tip, even though it is meant to be humorous. I think it works for me. So thank you very much. I have a couple of quick fire questions, and you don't have to be quick, but just make of it what you will.
Okay.
My first question is, what is your favorite floss?
I'm going to say DMC is my favorite floss. I love DMC.
That. Yeah.
I love the things that have opened up to me when before I only knew that there was DMC, but I trust it. I feel safe with it.
Yeah.
I think the finished product is gorgeous.
Yeah.
So it's DMC.
I agree with you. The best part about DMC is that whenever you buy it and wherever you buy it, it is more or less the same color.
Yes.
And that is very different with all the others. So you have to buy always more than you think you're going to need.
Exactly.
Because you can't buy it at a later stage. And with DMC, you can. And I love that about it.
Yes.
So what is your favorite fabric?
Now you mean by as linen as opposed to Ada, that type of thing. Linen, absolutely linen. And I have made a journey there again in a very fast journey, relatively speaking, to my stitching years. I went 28 count linen, of course, that's where I started. Quickly jumped to 32, and then very quickly jumped to 36. And tragically, now I love 40. I love 40 count linen. So that would be where I'm the happiest. And I'm looking forward, as long as my eyes hold out, to even doing more on 56 count. But yes, I do love linen. But I also enjoy when the Vince and his stocking saga and facing another. Those are done on Ada because that's the best thing to do them on. And it's wonderful. It's wonderful to have that ease of seeing the holes. And again, that finished stocking to me was just as beautiful as, Ursula's sampler. So, yeah, but
But
linen
you
is my
prefer to
favorite.
have the linen, the
Yes,
linen knitting.
yes, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, fair enough. So do you have a whole stack of linen, a 28 count, 32 count that you've sort of purchased but are not using anymore? Yeah.
Yeah, and I haven't gotten rid of it because I don't know what my eyesight's going to do.
Mm.
And 28 count, I have very little 28 count. That was a rapid jump from 28 to 32. The 32
Yeah.
is what I have. But I'm not even afraid to stitch 1/1 on 32.
Yeah.
Um, but it's also kind of holding on to it again, just to see what my eyes are going to do.
Yeah. Do you use a magnifier at all, or can you just see it normally?
I use readers. I use Amazon. I get them at Amazon. I have had cataract surgery, and I had the lenses such that it for my close-up vision. Okay,
Yeah.
so that is good. I have to wear glasses to drive for distance. So
Yeah.
I have that, and then I use a 5+ reader. I have magnifying lights. They are awkward to me. When I first started stitching on the 56 count, I absolutely pulled it down because I thought there's no way I can see it. And, it was working fine. And then one morning, I just didn't pull it down and I could see it fine. With my 5+.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
where I'm the most comfortable. I don't
Yeah.
like that in between me and the
Yeah.
stitching.
So
But if
this
I
is
have to,
another tip for people. Try it without the magnifier just to check if you can see it regularly.
exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
And, along those lines, the tip is also is make sure that you either start your day with your higher counts if you're choosing to use them, and maybe making sure that you don't stitch, for several days like I did when I went to take care of the baby last week. I only took things that were 32 count because of lighting and etc. And when I came home that first night, I went to work on a piece of 46 count, and I was having just a little bit of struggle.
Yeah.
So, your eyes will adjust.
Yeah.
So you do want to watch that. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But always try it first with just your readers or yeah.
Yeah. I agree. Yeah. Are you a morning stitcher? Or are you an evening stitcher?
I am a day stitcher. I
Right.
I start stitching pretty much when I get up in the morning, which we get up around 5. I'm usually in my stitchy spot around 6:30 in the morning, and but we have a very old people routines, which we do. So there's a break to walk the dog, and there's a break for
Oh,
lunch, and there's a break for the nap, and then I
yeah.
go back to afternoon stitching about 1 o'clock, and I stitch to about 7. I do not stitch after 7.
Okay.
So
Right. So
yeah.
that's quite a lot of hours of stitching each day.
Well, you think it is, but it. I do get up a lot, which again should have been another tip that I should have, and I'm going to say it because I think it's important. Don't sit for extended lengths of time. Get up and move around. As a
Yeah.
physician, your legs and your body need that.
Yeah.
So I do get up frequently.
Yeah.
Um, I'll tell you, when I used Markup XP to do Vince's stocking, and I finally realized that there was an information section way too late, but there it was. I saw the average of how many hours I was stitching on Sundays that I dedicated to that stocking. And using that schedule that I just gave you, the hours ended up, actually stitching and marking off whatever, however they do that, um, measurement was only about 4 hours. So
All
I
right.
get up, yeah, I'm getting up and doing stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's good. So stay in movement. That's
Please.
important. And I
Yes.
agree. Yeah. And it's so easy to just sit there and stitch for hours and hours and hours on end. And I think it was Kim who said I'm very good at being retired. Are you good at being retired?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. It is not that I don't miss my patients, but I love my freedom of being able to stitch like
Yeah, I get
this.
that.
I do. Yeah.
I often go to work in the morning and I think, wouldn't it be lovely to just stitch all day? So I can't wait to be retired.
I know, Hanneke. I know you have to look forward to that.
I do. I very much do. Do you like kits or do you prefer kitting patterns up yourself?
I tend to kit them up myself. I
Yeah.
have bought, other than back in the day when we were doing the dimension kits and etc. Yes, I know I even kitted up the King Arthur and Guinevere piece that I showed you. That was kitted up. I just bought the pattern.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah,
From
I like to kit
scratch.
it up
Yeah.
myself.
Yeah.
Not that I vary as much, from what the pattern suggests, but I like to do it myself. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
Do you prefer a paper pattern or a PDF?
PDF. I do work off of either Markup XP or Good Notes.
Yeah.
I actually worked off paper patterns for many more years than I haven't. But once I was exposed to Good Notes and then to Markup XP, there was no going back. So
The big one with the flowers, the difficult one, you probably did with a paper pattern.
I did. And you know what
Yeah.
we used? You had a metal board. The brand name was Loran, Loran. They still make them. And they were large. I used a large one because,
Yeah.
and I put my pattern on a some type of easel like thing in front of me, and then I used the magnetic strips, and I always stitch. Get this, one line at a time. So everyone knows my history with dangling threads. Well, I had threads everywhere because I went right to left all the way down.
Oh, that must have been that must have been slow going. Or
Well,
were you quite quick at it?
well, I don't know because I don't remember, but I have finished things.
You did indeed, yeah.
But I think
Well,
about that. Isn't that insane? But that's how I did it.
yeah,
Just I moved that magnetic down. The
yeah, just to
nice
keep
thing
track.
about it was you could catch a mistake very quickly.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Uh, but of course, on some of those full coverage, who's going to know if you used, which shade of beige? Um,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Anyway, but yeah,
I
that's
feel a little bit spoiled because, in the olden days, you guys had to work with that, and I just get my pattern keeper, and I'm quite happy with everything that lights up. It just
yes,
works. So,
yes.
yeah. What is your biggest cross-stitching mistake or regret? And this question, both Kim and uh, the other Sarah found it a difficult question to answer, but I keep asking it.
I okay. I unfortunately, I do know what that is. I stitched Moonlight Sampler by the Blue Flower with the called for on a piece of XJU design fabric, which her fabric is exquisite.
Hmm.
The verse that is on that, if you're right in front of it, you can read it, but it ghosted. And
Yeah,
why I was so bullheaded that I wasn't going to change it because it's a piece that I dedicated to Chester, my dog, because I actually changed colors.
yeah,
As Janine would say, became drunk with power and made the dog look like Chester. Um, I could I could see it when I stitched, but
mm,
it's one of the pieces that I had professionally framed because it means something to me.
yeah.
And I struggle to see the verse, and the verse is so beautiful. That is probably the
Mm.
biggest regret I have. I've made a lot of mistakes that I've had to either start over or the
Yeah,
big one where we don't look at the orientation of the fabric. I've done those over the years. But that one was something that I could have even just taken another thread, and
Yeah.
it was not a hard fix. And I don't know what was in my head at the time, and that wasn't that long ago.
No.
That made me kind of stick to that. But I do have a regret about that.
And would it be possible to open it up and change it? Or is it not worth that hassle?
I don't think it's worth it because of the framing. I mean, it was,
Yeah.
like I said, it was professional. I mean, if I lived where the framer was, and Lisa at Ellen Framing in Ohio is who has done I mail those pieces to her. If I
Yeah.
lived where she was, and
Yeah.
I knew she could get it off quickly, yeah, I might. But
Yeah.
I don't think it's worth it to try to disrupt a beautifully framed, piece.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's still a pretty piece. I think I've seen it. It's not that long ago since you've stitched
No,
it, is it?
no,
No.
no.
Right. Which designer, this is the question from the first Sarah. Which designer would you like to spend a day with?
Huh. Um, I'm going to say I would love to go back in time and have spent time with Alma and my that's awful. The Blackbird designers, Barb and Alma. I would, because I love their, it's just one of those things where you think about just just being with them and them finding something, and then watching what they either were going to take from it, or and the actual charting, their aesthetic. I think they would be so enjoyable to be around. So I'm going to go with the beautiful ladies from Blackbird Designs. Yeah.
I love that. Would you do framing professionally or would you prefer to do it DIY, do it yourself?
Well, if I win the lottery, I would love them to be done professionally. But I am proud to say I pushed myself with a lot of encouragement from my Flosstube viewers, and I feel pretty confident with my lacing now.
Good.
And again, just where I am in life, you just can't professionally frame everything.
No.
So my preference would be professional, but I love that I am pushing myself to develop the skill to do it myself. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's very reasonable. I think we all understand that there is a limit to our budget and it's already expensive as it is anyway.
Right, right.
Would you start something new or finish your whip?
Probably start something new. Since I've already had 4 starts this month. Yeah, I love starting things. I feel that in 40 years ago we talked about our biological clocks, but I just want to feel like I've put needle to thread on these beautiful charts. I just so probably start. I do like finishing, but I like to know that I have put the threads in, because who knows. I'm going to blank. I say that all the time, but a woman that was a mother of a stitcher, that she was, I think, 90. She was 90. She's still stitching.
Wow.
So, boy, you look at 90 and 73, that's a lot.
Yeah, that's another 17 years to go.
Yeah. So, I'm going to say start. I love starting new things.
And I love that. And I also think it depends on whether you're a product stitcher or a process stitcher.
Exactly.
And if you enjoy the process, then it doesn't matter how many whips you have because you just enjoy stitching something. And it doesn't matter that it's not finished.
Well, it was a revelation that I had when when I watch, if you're watching your budget and you're watching a floss tube, you can't stop every time you see something, and go buy it. But when you have all these whips, if you see someone stitching on one that you have,
Yeah.
all you have to do is get up and go get it and put some
Oh, I
stitches.
like that theory.
Oh, it is. It's just it's invigorating, Oh,
Yeah.
that makes me want to stitch that. I have it started,
Yeah.
and it
Oh,
can
that's a
scratch
good
that itch.
reason. That's a good reason to start more.
Yeah. The
Right.
kids will have
Last
to take care
question.
of it, right?
What's,
I
sorry?
said my kids will have to take care of it, right?
They will send it all to the secondhand shop,
Yeah.
and then someone like me will come along and think, "Oh, look at all this stuff." That's
Right.
what happens. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which needlework technique would you like to learn?
Well, all of it. I am going to start. I'm planning within the next month, I hope, to start Laura Standish, which is one of the oldest American samplers that's been charted. Laura Standish is of the John Standish, the original, I think, settlers in the United States. It is not technically a cross stitch piece.
Right.
It is done in bands. It is and a wonderful viewer gifted me hers. It's about, like, I think 3 feet long and about this. And I met a wonderful woman on one of my Zoom calls, Lois. She has completed it. She did it with a woman that was teaching the class. It ends up being reversible.
Oh, really?
Yes. And so I've got her, and I think Karen Combs, who has a wonderful floss tube, also has done this piece. I think she will be another resource. I'm going to look at it as just sitting down. This is not something you can just pick up, but I will look at one band, do all the reading that I can, do whatever practicing I need to do, and see if I can complete one band. If I can't, then I will go to the next one. So, it has a variety of stitches that I think I'll be exposed to. And I feel like it's kind of a great last hurrah at pushing myself to learn these other stitches. So,
oh, that's a beautiful challenge to put for yourself.
yeah,
That's lovely.
yeah, I'm very touched that she thought of me to send me the piece. I realized the historical significance of it, and I'm really anxious to get it started. So,
Yeah. And just to go back, you said it's reversible. Do I understand you correctly? If that means that you can look at it from the front and the back, and both of it is a finished product?
yes, in fact, when Lois had hers framed, you see, it's between glass because you want to be able to see the back and
Yeah.
the.
Oh, I have to look that one up. That sounds amazing.
And Hands Across the
That's
Sea also has another, I think, has an older band sampler that ends up being reversible as well. And I don't know the name of it right off the top of my head, but I'm pretty sure it's a band sampler because I saw it at Sampler Symposium. And you talk about seeing something in person.
yeah.
It's quite impressive. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
And if I look at some of my backs, you don't want to see that,
No,
really.
no. I've gotten better, but
Right, I have one more question for you, and then we will finish up. And that question is for my next guest. So I have another person lined up for my fourth podcast. And what would you like me to ask them?
okay, I did give that great thought, and I do have an answer that's not humorous. I would like them to describe what their journey has been with fabric. So, what did they start with? When did they change? Have they stayed with the same thing?
Like that.
Yeah.
That's a very nice question. I will add that to the list for that person and maybe even after that. Because
Yeah,
I do find the question, I just incorporate them everywhere basically. And this is a really nice question.
yeah.
Is there anything you would like to add? Anything I didn't ask that you were hoping for me to ask?
No, but I want to say that your floss tube and your stitching and you have given me a lot of joy.
Oh, thank you.
And I'm so glad that the algorithm popped you up for me to take a look at, because it really is something that I look forward to every time I see that you have a new floss tube. And I love what you're doing now to just to continue this, our philosophy of community. And
Yeah.
it's very different talking with you than as I'm sure a lot the predecessors, Sarah and Kim are, oh my goodness, I just adore them both. But it's very different talking in this way. And I think by doing this, you are allowing just a little more insight into the people that we watch every day, on
Yeah.
Flosstube.
It's what I try to do because I think there are so many lovely stories behind all the floss tubers that we watch. For instance, now that you're saying you've been stitching since you were 10, 11 years old, I think that's such a wonderful thing to know about someone. Yeah.
Yeah. So
So I'm trying
thank
to
you.
get that. That's the idea, and I really enjoy doing it. So I'd like to thank you very much for doing this with me because, it's still trying. This is the third one and we're all learning and me too. So thank you very much for trying this with me. I had a great time. I just addressed the viewers as well. Thank you all very much for watching. If you have any questions for our next guest or for Sarah, you can put that in the comments. I'm sure Sarah will go through the comments at some point and reply to questions. If you have any for my next guest, you can just leave them there and I'll take them with me. And I hope to see you all next time.